In the rush of modern life, we often find ourselves overwhelmed by noise, by pressure, by endless distractions pulling us in every direction. We chase success, cling to approval, and fear falling behind. But the more we run, the more lost we feel. Yet, for thousands of years, the wisest minds across Eastern traditions have whispered a simple truth. When the mind grows still, wisdom awakens. Peace is not found in escaping life, but in understanding it. Wisdom isn't born from noise, but from silence. From that stillness, clarity rises, insight deepens, purpose returns. This collection of 16 ancient stories offers timeless lessons from the sages, monks, and thinkers of the past. Each tale is short, but steeped in meaning, speaking to the very heart of what it means to live well, to suffer less, and to see clearly. They are not just stories, they are mirrors. Through them, we may catch a glimpse of our own faults, our own hopes, and the hidden strength within us. So take a breath, slow down, let the noise settle, and step with me into the quiet world of these stories, where the heart becomes calm and the mind becomes wise. Story 1. The more peaceful the mind, the clearer the wisdom. The quieter the mind, the sharper the wisdom. One should not, for a fleeting moment of joy, affect others or oneself negatively. The virtue and intellect of a person are witnessed by heaven and earth. If one possesses true talent and substance, the results will naturally be sweet fruits and fragrant blossoms. There is no need to loudly proclaim one's greatness for the world to see. That in itself is not wisdom. Once upon a time, there was a young boy who lost both his parents at the age of 7. Orphaned and with nowhere to go, he wandered from place to place, begging for food and drink to survive. His days were a mix of hunger and struggle. As night fell, and the air grew colder, he desperately sought shelter, often ending up sleeping under trees when no clean place could be found. His life of hardship and solitude dragged on until one stormy night when he found refuge in a large temple. Courageously stepping inside, he encountered the head monk standing at the main entrance. The boy was filthy, his skin darkened by wind and sun, and his long, unkempt hair fell over his face. Despite this, the head monk approached him kindly with a gentle smile and asked about his situation. With pure, wide-open eyes, the boy shared his sad story. Moved by the child's plight, the head monk took him in. Overjoyed, the boy finally found a place to call home after years of wandering. Once bathed and with his head shaved, his intelligent, handsome face shone through. He was no longer a dirty, stray child. He was given a new life as a novice monk. Every day, the young novice diligently carried out his temple duties, fetching water, cooking rice, sweeping leaves, and cleaning the meditation hall. The head monk observed the boy's obedience and quick learning and was very pleased. Soon, he began teaching the boy how to read and write and introduced him to Buddhist scriptures. Intelligent and hard-working, the novice quickly absorbed many teachings. He could sit in meditation for long periods and often shared his insights from the scriptures with the other monks, who all admired his understanding and intelligence. However, over time, the young novice developed a bad habit. Whenever he learned something new, he would write down his favorite lines everywhere, on walls and throughout the temple gardens. Every time he grasped a concept, he would boast about it to the other monks. He lacked patience when being corrected and judged others based on appearances, always expecting agreement with his views. The head monk, seeing this, pondered for a while and decided it was time to teach him a lesson. One day, the head monk handed the novice a pot of night primroses and said, "Observe these flowers at night while doing your duties." The next morning, the boy excitedly brought the pot to his master and said, "These flowers are amazing. I stayed up watching them. They opened quietly under the moonlight and released a gentle fragrance. By morning, they had already closed." The head monk asked calmly, "Did the flowers wake you up when they bloomed?" "No, master," the novice replied. "They were completely silent when they opened and closed." "Really?" said the master with a soft smile. "I thought they would make a big fuss to show off their beauty to you." The novice paused, then humbly replied, "I understand now, master. I will correct my mistake." The head monk smiled peacefully. The novice had learned a profound lesson in humility. The night primroses didn't flaunt their beauty. They bloomed silently, gave off their fragrance, and beautified the world, and people still admired them. One must value humility, be accommodating to others, and stay grounded regardless of how wise or talented one may be. Only by placing oneself below others can one earn true respect and affection. As the saying goes, this mountain is high, but another mountain is higher. Serenity and humility are deep states of mind that lead to success. If we treat all with tolerance and humility, let go of our egos and judgments, we will win hearts and see everything go smoothly. Story 2. To succeed in life, one must maintain inner stillness. Success is a goal many people strive for, but not everyone understands the fundamental truths required to reach it. The 2 short stories below offer deep insights into the essential qualities needed to walk one's own path and reach their destination. First story, The Test of Stillness. One summer morning, under a large ancient tree by the river, a Zen master was calmly teaching 4 of his disciples. Tall, composed, and radiant with a peaceful aura, his voice was gentle, yet profound, captivating not only his students, but seemingly even the birds and fish nearby. Everything around them seemed to quiet down to listen. At the end of his teaching, the Zen master said, "I will be away for 1 watch of the day. You must remain here and silently reflect on today's lesson. No talking until I return. When I come back, we will continue our discussion. Remember what I've told you." "Yes, master," the 4 disciples replied in unison. After the master left, the students sat cross-legged in silence to review the teachings. For half a watch, all was still. The only sounds were the wind and the river lapping at the shore. But soon, the wind picked up, and dark clouds began to gather. One disciple looked up and said, "Wow, looks like we're in for a heavy storm." No sooner had he spoken than the second disciple scolded, "Why did you talk? The master told us not to." The third chimed in, "Look who's talking. Aren't you breaking the rule by speaking, too?" What began as an observation turned into frustration and mutual accusations. The 3 disciples began bickering with one another. Only the 4th disciple remained calm and silent, continuing his meditation without being distracted by the other's quarrel. When the Zen master returned, the 2nd disciple quickly pointed at the first and said, "Master, he spoke while you were gone." "Is that so?" "Even you couldn't keep silent?" asked the master, turning to the 2nd disciple. The 3rd added, "Master, they both broke your rule." And then the 1st and 2nd disciple simultaneously responded, "But he spoke too." After hearing them all, The Zen master finally said, "From what I've heard, 3 of you failed the task. Only the 4th disciple followed my instruction. I believe he will achieve great wisdom and reach high levels in the future. The rest of you must reflect seriously on this lesson. You disobeyed a simple rule just to point out each other's faults. Was it worth it? Cultivation is a serious matter. If you cannot treat my guidance with sincerity, how can you expect to progress?" The 3 bowed their heads in shame. They had learned a profound lesson about discipline, ego, and focus. Second story: learn to listen to yourself. One day, a professor was walking through the university campus when he saw a group of students practicing a performance. Among them, amid the noise, chatter, and laughter, one male student stood out. He was trying hard to perfect a difficult move, but looked visibly upset and disappointed. The professor approached and asked, "Son, why are you so down?" "I don't know, Professor. I've been trying my best, but I just can't get it right." The professor smiled and replied, "I've been watching you. It's not as hard as you think. You've been trying very hard. That's good. But to succeed, you need to learn to listen to your body. Come with me. I'll show you something." He led the student to a stream in a forest behind the campus and asked him to sit quietly by the water and observe. After a while, the professor pointed to the flowing stream and said, "Look at those large rocks in the water. Do you think the water is troubled by them?" He continued, "No, of course not. The water simply flows around the rocks and keeps going forward. You should learn from the water. Learn how to listen, how to adapt." The student seemed to have an epiphany. He returned to campus with a calm mind and practiced the move again, this time tuning out the noise and distraction around him. Surprisingly, he performed the move perfectly. The lesson: these 2 stories offer a timeless lesson about success. You must remain focused and stay true to your principles. Follow the guidance of those with experience and learn to interpret signs along your journey to build your own understanding. Don't let temporary temptations or external distractions derail your goals. If you stay centered and follow the right path with discipline, you'll achieve your aspirations. Heaven grants each person a unique sense of perception, and only the individual can truly understand themselves. To reach greatness, you must first know yourself, clearly define your goals, and pursue them with calm determination. In the end, to achieve great things, one must cultivate a tranquil spirit. A person who possesses calmness and harmony within will see clearly, unclouded by petty concerns or trivial gains. In today's society, driven by fame, wealth, desire, and temptation, only those who maintain inner stillness will avoid being swept away and truly live a life of meaning and freedom. Story 3. Adversity is only a paper dragon. In life, we often encounter countless setbacks and external blows, but ultimately, how those adversities affect us is entirely within our control. When I was young, my grandfather made me a paper dragon. The belly of this dragon was just large enough to fit a few grasshoppers. I placed several inside it. All of them died. Not a single one survived. My grandfather explained, "Grasshoppers are hot-tempered creatures. They frantically struggle and thrash around without thinking to bite through the thin paper wall in front of them. Nor do they realize that if they simply keep moving forward, they can exit from the other end. So even though they have powerful jaws and sharp claws, none of that helps them." Then, he placed a few leaf-eating caterpillars into the mouth of the dragon and sealed it shut. To my surprise, just minutes later, the caterpillars began to crawl out one by one from the tail end. I reflected deeply on this. Fate, in truth, is concealed within our way of thinking. Many people cannot overcome the adversities in their lives, whether large or small, not because they lack the capability, but because they don't have the will to break through. They lack the patience to find another route forward. Instead of persistently exploring, step by step, until a path reveals itself, they choose to give up. The lesson adversity is like a paper dragon, intimidating only at first glance. When faced with hardship, those who panic and flail about will trap themselves. But those who remain calm, observe carefully, and keep moving forward with determination will find the way out. It's not about the strength you have, it's about the mindset you carry. Story 4. The Stubborn Stone in the Mind. What often blocks us from creating, discovering, or advancing isn't the outside world. It's the mental obstacles we harbor. The most immovable barriers are often the ones lodged deep in our thinking. There was once a family with a large stone lying right in the middle of their vegetable garden. It was about 40 centimeter wide and 10 centimeter high. Anyone unfamiliar with the layout who walked through the garden would easily trip over it, sometimes falling, sometimes scraping themselves. One day, the son asked his father, "Dad, why don't we just dig up that annoying rock and move it out of the garden?" The father replied, "That rock? It's been there since your grandfather's time. It's huge. Who knows how long it would take to dig it up? Instead of wasting all that effort, we just walk around it carefully. It's good for training your reflexes." Years passed. The stone remained, and that little boy eventually became a grown man with a wife of his own. One day, the daughter-in-law complained, "Dad, that stone in the garden, the more I look at it, the more it irritates me. Why don't we hire someone to remove it?" The father replied, "Let it be, dear. That rock is heavy. If it could have been moved, I would have done it when I was younger. Why do you think it's still there?" But the daughter-in-law remained bothered. That rock had caused her to trip countless times. One morning, she fetched a shovel and a bucket of water, poured the water around the rock, and prepared herself for a long day of digging. To her shock, within minutes, she had already pried the stone out of the ground. Upon closer inspection, she realized the rock wasn't as massive as everyone thought. Its size had simply been exaggerated by years of avoidance and assumption. The lesson: if you convince yourself that climbing down a slope is as hard as scaling a mountain, then you'll never be able to climb. If your world feels heavy and hopeless, it's often because you're carrying that weight within yourself. So if you want to change your world, the first step is to change your mindset. Story 5. Patiently pursuing your goals. In 1858, a beautiful little girl was born into a wealthy family in Sweden. But not long after her birth, she developed an unexplained paralysis and lost the ability to walk. One day, her family boarded a ship for a vacation. While on board, the captain's wife told the girl a story about a special bird known as the flag bird, also called the bird of paradise. The girl was fascinated and longed to see it for herself. Her nanny left her briefly on deck to go search for the captain and bring him back. But the young girl's curiosity got the better of her. She begged a crew member to take her to see the flag bird. Unaware of her condition, the crew member took her by the hand and led her away. Something miraculous happened. Driven by intense desire and wonder, the girl forgot she was paralyzed. She gripped the crew member's hand and began to walk step by slow step. From that moment on, she began to recover. Her legs healed completely. As she grew older, she poured herself into writing with passion and purpose. Her perseverance and imagination led her to become the first woman ever to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. Her name was Selma Lagerlöf. The lesson: a burning passion, the kind that makes you forget everything else, is often the shortest path to success. Only in this state of wholehearted focus can a person break free from their limitations and unlock the deepest reserves of power within. Story 6. Stop complaining. Wealth and misery come down to just one thing. Life's burdens, worries, and frustrations can pile up until you feel exhausted and hopeless. No matter how hard you try, it seems like your efforts never bring the results you want. But in truth, whether you live in wealth and happiness or in poverty and dissatisfaction, often comes down to just one thing. There once was a young man who constantly complained about his fate. He felt like life never gave him a fair chance. His friends weren't who he hoped they'd be. His job didn't excite him or pay well. Everything he owned, from his clothes to his phone and car, seemed second-rate. One day, he sat in a park, staring gloomily across the street at a luxury shopping mall full of happy, well-dressed people. He felt utterly defeated. Just then, an old man passed by and stopped to chat. "Young man, what's weighing so heavily on your heart?" "I don't know why, sir, but I work so hard every day and I'm still so poor," he replied. The old man smiled and said, "Poor? You're actually incredibly wealthy. Has no one ever told you that?" "No, sir, I'm really not," the young man insisted. The old man continued, "Suppose I offered you 30 gold coins for just one of your fingers. Would you agree?" "Of course not," the young man exclaimed. "I'd never trade my hand for money." "All right. How about 3,000 gold coins for your eyes?" The young man gently ran his fingers over his face, tracing the lines of struggle and emotion that had marked his life, and said with a soft smile, "These eyes let me witness kindness, joy, and even pain. They're priceless. I couldn't give them up." The old man nodded, then said, "How about 30,000 gold coins for your life? Just hand over your heartbeat, and I'll give you all the gold in the world." Startled, the young man placed his hand over his chest and felt the steady rhythm of his heart. He remembered his childhood, the dreams he once carried, the people who had loved him, and the journey that brought him to that very moment. Tears welled in his eyes. "No, sir," he whispered. "I wouldn't trade my life for anything." The awakening. That moment changed him. He realized that despite everything he thought he lacked, he was already in possession of the most valuable gifts in life. We live in a world obsessed with wealth and status. It's easy to forget to feel grateful, to appreciate what we already have. Even in moments of failure, life continues to unfold, colorful and alive. It's our thoughts, beliefs, and desires that shape our reality. As we grow older, our dreams turn into habits. Positive habits fuel us. Negative ones drain us. And complaining is one of the worst. Complaining steals your time, your energy, and your potential. It poisons your mindset, pulls you into despair, and blinds you to the good things around you. The wisdom of the ancients. The ancients warned us, if you chase money as your only goal, you'll live in misery. If you center your life around your children, you'll feel constantly exhausted. If you base your worth on love alone, you'll be deeply vulnerable. If you can't define what truly matters to you, what gives your life meaning, you'll forever be lost in pursuit of satisfaction that never arrives. The real difference between rich and poor, gain and loss, are relative. What matters is how you perceive them and how you respond. If you don't recognize the value of precious things, no amount of material wealth will bring you joy. If you lack compassion, no number of friends will stay in your life. If you lack gratitude, even exceptional talent won't take you far. True happiness is found in being content with what you have and nurturing a pure and kind heart. A person who cultivates virtue, kindness, and gratitude becomes a magnet for goodness. Their body radiates positive energy and draws in the best that the world has to offer. From ancient times, sages have taught us, virtue connects us with heaven and earth. Those who are rich in virtue will always be protected and supported by the divine. Virtue is life's greatest treasure. Story 7. Without self-control, there is no freedom. We often brush off the small things in life, assuming they don't matter, that they won't lead to serious consequences. But as the saying goes, a river is made from countless drops of water. If we can't control the small things, we won't be able to handle the big ones. There was once a student who always avoided classmates who smoked. He knew smoking was harmful to health and that if the school found out, the consequences would be serious. One day, while on a trip with his friends, a classmate offered him a cigarette. At first, he refused, but the friend insisted, "Just one puff, it won't kill you." After much coaxing, the student finally gave in and took a puff, and ended up coughing uncontrollably, eyes watering, nose running. He thought to himself, "This is disgusting. Why do people even smoke?" A few days later, the same friend offered him another cigarette. "Come on, it won't be as bad the second time." He hesitated but tried again. This time, he still coughed, but less than before. And slowly, that one puff became 2, then 3, until he became addicted. By the time he realized it had become a habit, it was already deeply rooted. Plato once warned a wandering young man, "Once a habit is formed, it's almost impossible to change." The young man casually replied, "If the opportunity comes, just grab it. What's the harm?" Plato sternly said, "When you try something once, it can grow into a habit. And once that happens, it's no longer a small matter." The same goes for other habits. Swearing, losing your temper, making excuses, overeating, slouching, drinking, gambling. At first, it seems accidental or harmless. But before you know it, the habit controls you. That's the terrifying thing about habits, the illusion of freedom. Many of us think we're free, but once we're caught in bad habits or addictions, freedom vanishes. We become slaves, not to others, but to ourselves. There's a well-known story from World War II about oil tycoon J. Paul Getty, one of the richest men in the world. One night, around 2 a.m., he woke up with an intense craving for a cigarette. He instinctively reached for the pack he had left by the bed, but it was empty. He checked his pockets. Nothing. Determined, he put on a coat and walked through the pouring rain to a night market over a mile away. Halfway there, covered in mud and drenched to the bone, he suddenly stopped and thought, "What am I doing?" That was the moment Getty truly realized the overwhelming power of habit. He decided then and there he would never smoke again. The wisdom of the ancients. The ancient philosopher Pythagoras once said, "A man who cannot control himself can never be free." It's like this. One piece of candy won't make you overweight, but over time, those little indulgences add up. The British playwright Wyndham once said, "At first, we shape our habits, but in the end, our habits shape us. Good habits are hard to build, but reward us for a lifetime. Bad habits are easy to form, but can control us forever. So don't let yourself become a prisoner of your own doing. Avoid the trap while you still can. Story 8. If you don't cherish what you have, you'll only regret it. When it's gone long ago, there was a simple, honest woodcutter who earned a living by chopping firewood and trading it for food and rice. His life was peaceful and uneventful. One day, as usual, he went into the forest to gather wood. Along the path, he found a beautiful bird with shimmering silver feathers that had been injured. Its wings sparkled in the sunlight like something out of a fairy tale. Amazed, the woodcutter had never seen such a magnificent bird in all his life. He gently brought the silver bird home and carefully tended to its wounds. Each day during its recovery, the bird would sing to him, a sweet, soothing song that brought him joy and happiness. The woodcutter looked forward to the bird's melody and grew fond of its presence. But one day, a neighbor said to him, "I once saw a golden bird, even more beautiful than yours. Its feathers glowed brighter, and its song was 100 times more enchanting." From that moment on, the woodcutter couldn't stop thinking about the golden bird. He wondered what it looked like, how its song sounded, and whether it was truly better than the silver bird. His heart drifted. He no longer listened to the silver bird's songs. Day by day, he became indifferent and no longer found joy in the bird he once cherished. Then one evening, as the sun set and the horizon burned with color, the silver bird, now fully healed, prepared to leave. Before flying off, it sang one final song for the woodcutter. But instead of listening with gratitude, the woodcutter sighed and said, "Your song is nice, but I imagine the golden bird's is even better. Your feathers are pretty, but they don't compare to golden ones." The silver bird circled him 3 times in farewell, then soared toward the glowing sunset. And just as it rose into the sky, the fading sunlight caught its feathers, illuminating them in a golden brilliance, bright, dazzling, and radiant. Only then did the woodcutter realize the golden bird he had longed for was the silver bird all along. He stood in silence, filled with sorrow. But it was too late. The lesson so often, we search for something far away, thinking it will bring us greater happiness. And in doing so, we neglect what's right in front of us. We fail to appreciate what we have until it's gone. True happiness isn't something distant or unreachable. It's already here, but we don't see it because we don't value it. There's an old saying, if you have something, treasure it. Once it's gone, don't go chasing after it. Don't wait until life forces you to learn this the hard way. Cherish the present. Cherish those beside you. Happiness always smiles upon those who know how to value it. Story 9. Embrace great ambitions, but don't forget the small details. In the heart of a remote mountain forest, a Zen master named Bat Jiak had been deep in meditation for 49 years. His body sat still as stone, moss, and grass covering him, dust settling even on his eyelashes. He was approaching the final stage of his lifelong retreat, only 90 days away from enlightenment, from spiritual awakening. The forest was silent. The sound of wind through the maple trees and the occasional call of monkeys echoed through the mountains, fading into the vast, empty space. Time had carved his image into the rock wall he sat against. Insects crawled across him, wild animals brushed against his thin, crossed legs. Snakes slid past his robes, yet the master never flinched. His vow was firm: to transcend the pain of the body and break free from the cycle of suffering. One moon cycle later, his practice of divine hearing, Phap Nhi Thung, finally awakened. Now he could hear and understand the voices of all beings: birds, animals, insects, even the whisper of plants and trees. One day, a pair of sparrows came and built a nest right inside his ear. The master remained still. The birds chirped and preened, made love and teased each other. They flew to and from his head, carrying twigs and feathers. Soon, the nest was complete, fitting snugly around the edge of his left ear. After several rainy nights, the female laid 5 eggs. The birds took turns incubating the nest. While one sat warming the eggs, the other fetched food. Their lives were full of loving noise, flapping, pecking, chirping, cooing. One day, the female bird waited too long for her mate to return with food. Starving and agitated, she leaned in and pecked fiercely at the Zen master's ear, digging her tiny beak into his skin. Still, he did not move. Weeks passed. The eggs hatched. 5 baby birds squirmed in the nest, squealing constantly. They fought for food, stepped on each other, cried out day and night. All the while, the Zen master remained in deep meditation, perfectly still. Only one day remained before his enlightenment. That evening, the female sparrow flew off to find food, but returned empty-beaked. Exhausted, she searched until twilight, eventually spotting a large spider in a lotus flower on a nearby lake. As she approached, the spider darted deep into the petals. Desperate and hungry, the bird chased it inside just as the sun set, and the lotus closed tightly around her. Trapped. She pecked and struggled, but the petals held fast. With her strength fading, wings crumpled, and no food in her belly, she collapsed unconscious inside the flower. Back at the nest, the male sparrow panicked. He flew in frantic circles, searching for his mate. The 5 chicks cried out endlessly, hungry and afraid. As the hours passed, his worry turned into rage. At dawn, the lotus bloomed again, and the female escaped. She returned home in a frenzy, only to face her furious mate, who accused her of abandoning the family. She tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. "You left us to suffer. You betrayed me!" Heartbroken, she wept. The argument escalated into a full-blown fight. Angry chirps, shrieking, and flapping wings right beside the Zen master's ear. Eventually, the chicks, frightened by their parents yelling, began to trample each other, screaming louder and louder. The chaos became unbearable. At that moment, the Zen master, after 49 years of unwavering meditation, finally snapped. With a burst of anger, he reached up, yanked the nest from his ear, and hurled it to the ground. "You miserable creatures!" he shouted. "All this noise over such a trivial matter. You've deafened me since morning." The moment the words left his lips, he felt it. He was falling, spiritually, deeply, and irrevocably. It was as if he had plunged from the highest peak of heaven into the depths of the mortal world. The divine light he had spent half a century reaching for slipped further and further away. He let out one final gasp, the gasp of a lifetime of dedication, lost in an instant. And so, the Zen master's 49 years of ascetic devotion were undone in a single moment of anger. The lesson. There's an old saying, a 3-foot thick sheet of ice forms from frost overnight. Even the most minor trials, the tiniest emotional cracks, can destroy a lifetime of effort if we're not careful. What seemed like harmless, everyday sparrow drama carried the power to derail a monk's spiritual journey. Why? Because he didn't guard his mind from the accumulation of distraction. A flood begins with a trickle. A sinking ship starts with a crack. A balloon bursts from a pinhole. As the Buddha taught, a true, noble person never disregards the details. Small lapses, if allowed to fester, can sabotage even the highest goals. To master ourselves and to reach peace, fulfillment, and enlightenment, we must remain grounded, humble, and watchful at all times. Story 10. Heaven has a plan for us all. But what does that really mean? There once was a young man who was extremely lazy. He was always looking for an easy life, one where he could eat without lifting a finger. One day, while wandering in search of food, he came across an orchard full of ripe fruit, golden pears, red apples, a paradise for the hungry. Overwhelmed by desire, he glanced around, hoping no one was guarding the place. Just as he climbed a tree to snatch some fruit, he spotted the farmer running toward him, waving a stick. The young man panicked, leapt down, and ran as fast as he could, darting into a nearby forest to hide. Eventually, exhausted, he climbed a tree to rest. To his surprise, the forest was calm and peaceful, a stark contrast to his racing heart. As he caught his breath, he noticed something unusual, a two-legged goat walking slowly yet seemingly content, despite its disability. How can that goat be so happy? The young man wondered. How does it survive like that? How does it eat or escape predators? While lost in thought, he spotted a lion approaching, holding a piece of meat in its mouth. Animals around scattered in fear, but the goat didn't. It couldn't run. And then, something amazing happened. The lion gently placed the meat in front of the goat, turned, and walked away. The young man was stunned. Is this fate? Could it be that heaven provides for all living beings, even the disabled? Excited, he thought, maybe this is how life works. Maybe God will also provide for me. And so he left the forest, found a shady spot, sat down, and waited, hoping someone would bring him food. Time passed. Nothing came. 1 day, 2 days, he began to starve. Barely able to move, he finally stumbled back onto the road. Along the way, he encountered a wise sage and shared the story. The forest, the goat, the lion, the meat. The sage gave him food and water, listened carefully, and smiled. Son, heaven does have a plan for everyone. And yes, that includes you. But you misunderstood the message. Heaven didn't want you to be the goat. Heaven wanted you to be the lion. The lesson, yes. There is such a thing as fate, or what Eastern wisdom calls heaven's mandate. But fate doesn't mean sitting idle, hoping good things will fall into your lap. The lazy person misreads fate and waits for it to feed them. The greedy person fights and schemes to get what they want, even things not meant for them. But if something isn't truly destined for you, no matter how hard you try, it will either slip away or cost you greatly. So why are our fates different? The answer lies in karma, the cause and effect of our actions, past and present. The fortune or misfortune you face today is often the result of what you did in a previous life or even earlier in this one. Do good, and you build virtue. Do wrong, and you accumulate karmic debt. This, in turn, shapes your destiny. So, how should we live? The Buddha said, to suffer is to repay karma. If you want the best life has to offer, there's only one path. Live with kindness, sincerity, and patience. These three qualities, truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, are the surest way to build virtue and clear karmic debt. The ancients taught, as long as you are a good person, heaven will have a plan for you. Story 11. When you're truly mature, you no longer suffer. At age 18, society considers us adults. We gain legal rights and responsibilities, and it seems we've reached maturity. But true maturity doesn't come just from age or physical growth. It may take an entire lifetime to achieve real maturity, the kind that comes from within. A young man once came to a great master and said, "Master, I feel so much pain inside. When I become mature, will the pain go away?" The master replied gently, "You've grown up in body, but not yet in heart and mind. That's why you still suffer." The young man was confused. "But I am already grown, master." The master smiled and said, "Yes, physically you are, but emotional and spiritual maturity is something else entirely. It's not about age, but about what's inside you." To help him understand, the master brought out 2 melons, one ripe and one unripe. He sliced them both in half and asked, "Look closely. What differences do you see between these 2?" The young man examined them carefully. The ripe one is full inside with seeds and juicy flesh. The unripe one is hollow. There's barely anything there. The master nodded. "Exactly. A mature melon is full, rich, sweet, and nourishing. The immature one is empty, bitter, and undeveloped. The same is true for people. Inside a ripe melon are seeds, the beginnings of new life. They represent hope, faith, and purpose. A person who has matured inside is the same, full of clarity, belief, and peace. So when your heart is full of meaning and your mind is calm and steady, suffering fades away." The lesson. True maturity means being emotionally full, not empty. It means having hope, believing in yourself and your path, and seeing purpose even in challenges. People who are inwardly mature don't get shaken by every little storm. They are rooted, resilient, and, most of all, free from unnecessary suffering. Story 12. Sometimes in life, it's better not to know too much. In life, knowledge is often power, but not always. In some cases, knowing less may actually be what saves you. First story. The driftwood. 2 men once fell into a wide river and began to struggle to stay afloat. One had excellent eyesight, the other was nearsighted. Both were growing exhausted when they spotted something floating in the distance. The man with good eyesight quickly realized it was just a rotting piece of driftwood, not a boat. He stopped swimming, hopelessness washing over him. The nearsighted man, however, believed it was a small boat. Full of determination, he kept swimming toward it. When he finally reached the driftwood, he realized it wasn't a boat, but he also saw that the shore was now close. He had survived. The man with perfect vision drowned. Second story. The cancer diagnosis. 2 men were diagnosed with terminal cancer. One had very sharp hearing, and while lying in the hospital, he overheard the doctors whispering, "He only has 3 months to live." From that moment, his health rapidly declined. The weight of those words crushed his spirit. The other man, however, was nearly deaf. Even if the doctor told him directly, he wouldn't have understood. And so, unaware of the prognosis, he went on living as usual. 3 months passed, then 6, then a year, and even 2 years later, he was still alive and well. Third story, the business crisis. In the United States, 2 CEOs led companies of similar size. One was named Robert, a brilliant strategist and analyst. Years before the 2008 financial crash, he predicted a market collapse and decided to shut down his company to minimize losses. He believed that 30% of small businesses would go bankrupt and assumed his would be among them. The other CEO, Stevie, was considered slow-witted by many. He believed the future was always uncertain, so he simply focused on surviving day by day. Even if he had been given the best plan in the world, he wouldn't have trusted it, because the future, he believed, can never be fully known. When the crisis hit, Robert's company had already shut down. Stevie's company? It weathered the storm and thrived. The lesson. Sometimes knowing too much brings fear, hesitation, and defeat. Sometimes not knowing lets us keep going. There's a saying, a little ignorance can be a blessing. Foolishness? Maybe. But it's also where many joys and miracles begin. Real peace and happiness often hide in the innocent, unaware parts of ourselves. The ones not paralyzed by overthinking, predictions, or fear. Story 13. You don't need to find a rival in this world. Don't waste your time arguing with petty people. If everything is handed to you perfectly prepared, then where is your value? Let's reflect on the story of Zhuge Liang, Kong Ming, and Liu Bei, 2 iconic figures from the Chinese classic Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Zhuge Liang never asked Liu Bei why their army had so few arrows. Guan Yu never questioned why their soldiers were so poorly equipped. Zhang Fei didn't ask what to do when their city was under siege. Instead, they simply acted. Zhuge Liang famously used straw boats to borrow arrows from the enemy. Guan Yu passed 5 gates and slew 6 generals on a daring mission. Zhao Yun, with just 20 soldiers, attacked and captured 10 cities, recruited 20,000 troops, and acquired 3,000 horses, all with a single order: take the city. If all conditions were perfect, if everything was planned in advance, what room would be left for your courage, your creativity, or your growth? True companionship is found on the path. It's not that you walk because you have companions. It's that by walking, you find the ones who are walking the same path. Sun Wukong met his fellow travelers Zhu Beji and Sha Wujing along the journey to retrieve the scriptures. Their brotherhood and shared destiny were born in the walking, not before it. Many people don't realize this truth. You don't wait for the right people to appear. You walk your path, and they appear. Don't waste energy on the wrong people. In this world, there's no such thing as a true rival. Don't argue with people who lack depth or character. If you can, elevate them. Make them allies instead. Consider this story. A young lion asked his father, "Dad, you fought tigers and leopards without fear, but when you saw that mad wolf, you ran away. Why? Isn't that embarrassing?" The father lion replied, "Son, beating a mad wolf brings no honor. And if that mad wolf bites me, even once, it's not worth the trouble. So why waste strength on battles that don't matter?" The lesson. There are people in life who are not worth debating. Instead of trying to win, try to understand, or simply move on. Smile. Be kind. Walk away. Compassion for others is also compassion for yourself, and peace, in the end, is worth far more than victory. Story 14. Master this, and you'll never make an enemy anywhere. There's an old tale. One day, a lion and a tiger got into a fierce fight. Both were badly wounded. Gasping for breath, the lion finally said, "If only you hadn't tried to take my territory, none of this would have happened." The tiger looked surprised. "Your territory? I never tried to take anything from you. I thought you were the one trying to steal mine." They had nearly killed each other, all because of a misunderstanding. The power of misunderstanding. This story shows just how important understanding each other is when it comes to human relationships. So how do we avoid unnecessary conflict? How do we cool our anger before it explodes? There's only one way: calm down. When we lose our temper, we lose control. Even close relationships can fall apart when communication is careless or aggressive. People often say, "We just need to understand each other." But how can we understand if we're both trying to win? How can we hear when no one's willing to listen? Communication is 70%. Emotion, 30%. Words. No two people are the same. And where there's difference, there's room for misunderstanding. When that happens, we must talk clearly and respectfully. If we don't, we'll find ourselves on the same boat, but rowing in opposite directions. When tensions rise, silence is more valuable than words. We spend 3 years learning to talk, and a lifetime learning when to be quiet. Ask yourself this before you get angry, before reacting. Wise people ask themselves, is this really worth getting angry about? What would change if I respond with calm versus with rage? Will my anger solve the problem or make it worse? Only after answering should you choose your response. A gentle heart builds bridges. Everything that arises also has a way to be resolved. When misunderstandings occur, choose to respond with patience and kindness. Until your heart is calm, it's better not to speak. Otherwise, your words may carry no sincerity. Poor communication has ruined countless relationships. Self-control is strength. Losing it is weakness. Learn to master your reactions, and you master your destiny. Love means bearing each other's worst moments. The person who can endure your temper is the one who loves you, and the person who dares to correct your temper also loves you. Don't hurt those who care about you most, just because you haven't learned to control yourself. Story 15. Cherishing others is the key to ending grudges and building blessings. Once upon a time, there was a young man, the only son of a wealthy family. He was spoiled, aimless, and indulged in pleasure. His father, worried that his son wouldn't be able to live independently, gave him a challenge. Go out, earn some money, and bring it home to me. Secretly, the boy's mother felt sorry for him. She slipped him some money and said, "Just go out for the day. When evening comes, come home." The boy wandered around all day doing nothing. That night, he handed the money to his father. Without a word, the father tossed the money into the fireplace. The boy didn't react. No pain, no concern, no sense of loss. The next day, the same thing happened. And the next. Until eventually, the mother stopped giving him money. The boy had no choice but to work. After a full week of labor, he came home and handed his hard-earned wages to his father. As before, the father threw the money into the fire, but this time, The boy cried out, leapt toward the flames, and frantically tried to rescue it from the burning coals. "Why would you do this, Father? I worked myself to the bone all week to earn this. How could you throw it away like that?" The father's face softened into a smile. The lesson this story reminds us: only when we've struggled for something do we truly appreciate it. Anything obtained effortlessly is hard to value. Anything earned through blood, sweat, and time, that's what we cherish most. But it doesn't end there. If you've learned to value your own efforts and time, you must also learn to value others' efforts and sacrifices. The true measure of respect. In this life, many people never realize how precious life itself is. As the poet once said, "We do not fear death because we have not truly understood the value of life. We don't know where we came from or where we'll go." So, how many people can truly live clearly, freely, without being bound by fame, fortune, or emotion? To cherish others is to elevate yourself. There's a saying, cherishing others is cherishing yourself. To respect someone's time, effort choices is the very foundation of a good heart and good relationships. In history, loyalty and gratitude have always been honored. Take Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zheng Fei, who swore brotherhood and risked their lives for each other. Once, after being defeated by enemy forces, Guan Yu was captured and treated kindly by warlord Cao Cao. When released, Guan Yu spared Cao Cao's life out of gratitude, even though they were enemies. That's the power of honor, of righteous debt repaid. The final message: everyone who enters your life does so for a reason. Cherish them. Even if they bring hardship, they may also bring blessings, growth, and healing. This is how grudges are dissolved, good karma is built, and fortune is multiplied. Story 16. When your inner world is strong, nothing is impossible. There was once a Zen student who had studied under a master for many years. Every day he followed a strict regimen: meditation, sweeping, tending the garden, and reciting scriptures. One day the student approached his master and asked, "Master, I've followed the rules for so long, meditated, worked hard, lived simply, but still, I feel unsettled. Why?" The master said nothing. He picked up a large, empty clay jar, handed it to the student, and said, "Take this and fill it with water." The student did as told. "Now," said the master, "throw in a large stone." The student dropped a fist-sized rock into the jar. It landed with a splash. "Do you think this jar can hold anything else?" the master asked. "Maybe a few smaller pebbles," the student replied. So the master added pebbles. They filled the gaps around the large stone. "And now?" "It's pretty full," said the student. The master picked up a handful of sand and poured it into the jar. It slipped into the smallest cracks between stones and pebbles. "Anything more?" The student shook his head. Then the master took a kettle of hot tea and poured it in. Slowly, gently. The tea seeped through all the spaces, saturating the jar completely. The student smiled in awe. The master said, "Your heart is like this jar. If it's full of random thoughts, resentment, ego, and desire, then there's no room for stillness, clarity, or wisdom. But when you place the most important things first, like faith, peace, purpose, everything else will find its place around them. The strongest people are those who master their inner world." In life, external strength, power, money, fame, may look impressive, but internal strength is what determines your peace, your wisdom, your future. A person with true inner calm doesn't panic in chaos, doesn't fall apart under criticism, and doesn't lose themselves in praise. Like a deep ocean, calm on the surface, yet vast and powerful beneath. The final teaching. In this world, we all face hardship. But the difference between those who collapse and those who rise is their inner foundation. If you train your mind to be still, even as the world shakes, then no matter how far you fall, you will rise again. Because the real strength of a person comes not from muscle or willpower, but from a calm and unshakable heart. When the mind is still, the path becomes clear. This is the greatest wisdom the ancients have passed down.